Hi, I'm Mike Duggan. I've been teaching restorative dentistry for over 32 years now and to over 6,000 dentists. This video shows how I do it. Real-time, mannequin-based, hands-on, point of view, and patient real. If you are a pre-dental student, an aspiring teacher, an international dentist, join me at Duggan Oral Design, DugganOralDesign.com.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking time of your Sunday to be here. I see some familiar faces and some of you I don't know, but I can very much understand what you're going through since I've been, one day I've been in your shoes. And today, Dr. Duggan is presenting a lecture about with a lot of insights to help guide you throughout your journey and allows you to have some wisdom when you're trying to build your career in dentistry in the United States. Dr. Duggan is a world-renowned figure. Most of you international dentists have heard of the name Duggan, maybe due to the fact that he's been helping international dentists for the past 32 years. He taught thousands and thousands of dentists, helped them build their career. But not only to get a license in the United States, but to be a high-quality restorative dentist. Everybody who went through Dr. Duggan's courses have very great appreciation to details and quality when it comes to restorative dentistry, and actually enjoys practicing dentistry. I'm an example of Dr. Duggan's courses, and he definitely sold me on how beautiful restorative dentistry and how rewarding it can be. So without further ado, I will allow him to start his lecture. Please defer all your questions until the end of the lecture. We'll have a section where we can get all your questions. Also, this session will be available later on for people who couldn't join or people who might miss some parts of it. We will edit this session and upload it on our YouTube channel. And I will give you Dr. Duggan.
Welcome, everybody. I'm in our Duggan Oral Design Teaching Center in Irvine, California. And I know a bit about what you're going through, not as much as Dr. Zandaki, having himself gone through all the different steps, but I've worked with 6,000 students that are international dentists, starting, as he said, a long time ago. And so you are probably somewhere around down here. That's just where you just did the IMDBE. I spelled that wrong. Anyway, so you're maybe at step 1 right here, and there are 6 steps to go before you get to actually practicing dentistry in the United States. And my job, my goal, is to make sure that I make those steps easier. So we just had the Summer Olympics recently, and we had the hurdles. So these are hurdles that you need to be going over. And depending upon the choices that you make, we can lower these hurdles so that they're not as hard to get over and make it easier and easier as you get close to the point where you're actually practicing dentistry. So you have some choices. So the theme of this webinar basically is, what choices do you have? And can you make the best choices in order to enable yourself to lower those hurdles and get a good practice? Okay, so the main thing is there are 3 different areas of choice that you need to make. And I don't know where each of you is in terms of this scheme of things, but I'm just assuming that you've gotten through your written exams, and now it's time to you might have started doing some dental assisting, some volunteer work, or maybe you've been working on a master's program or anything like that that is going to be helpful for you in terms of your CV and this kind of thing. Your CV is obviously critical. As you submit that, what you've done, what you've chosen to do with your time is important. That all has to do with, what's in the past and or what you're doing in the present moment in terms of generating a CV. What you've done in the past, your personal experience with dentistry, your family experiences, your community experiences with dentistry. I've read a lot of statements of purpose. I've read a lot of SOPs. And the ones that have the most impact are, basically your SOP helps to put in perspective what you've been doing, whether you've been volunteering or got a master's degree or whatever. The SOP puts in perspective, why you did those things so that you're looking for the future. Your SOP should have a lot of heart and a very clear statement of purpose, obviously. It should demonstrate that you are dedicated, that you have a passion, that you have fascination, and that you're caring. And you might want to think about the fact that, when you look at how dentistry is being done, and I'm talking about in this country, there's a lot of dentists that don't seem to care that much. You go to any dental laboratory and look at the cases, and a lot of what you see is submitted to the lab by a dentist that just doesn't care to do the highest quality dentistry, or even dentistry that's acceptable, or that will even work, or even serve the patient well. So to some extent, that's just a lack of caring. And ultimately, your caring might spill over to the provider community. The dental provider community in the US needs help. And I would like to have my students out there in the future providing some help to that. Okay, do you want to teach? Maybe you can see your way clearly to teaching, and that's certainly a noble profession. But anything that all these choices that you're making around here right now is what's going to help bolster your application to dental school, okay, for advanced standing programs. Now, we can do a lot more than that, but certainly that's about, who you are now and who you want to be and how you envision things in the future when you get past all these 6 steps here. So choice 1 is making sure you've got a unified picture of who you are, and you've assembled that from all the things you wanted to do and your passions and your interests and so forth. And you presented them in a letter that people can read. And I've read statements of purpose that make me cry. Okay? So definitely in emotional content, never hurts. But, certainly the drive and the passion for what it is that you have in mind is hugely valuable. Okay, choice 2 is the big one. Choice 2 is the big one because, you can obtain some training or education in this country that will help you in a multitude of ways. And so what I indicated earlier is if you choose the right training to work with the right person to get the right mentor, then everything else can become easier. And I'll show you how that happens. All these other hurdles start to get more low. You can take more advantage of the opportunities that you have by bringing a very different perspective into it. So the training part of it, again, ultimately, there's a lot that's going to be coming from that. But, if you choose a mentor, there are 9 different areas where you should consider when you're choosing a mentor. It may be a former faculty member at a dental school. That would be a good thing. It should be somebody that's been doing this type of teaching work, especially in the international dental community, for a long time, and I mean decades. It should be somebody that's doing it full-time. That's their total dedication, is to international dental community. I've been doing it full-time since 2000. And then 8 years before that, I was doing it as well as teaching in dental school. Then they should be using the best technology so that they can communicate to you clearly, and that every student can see what it is that they're getting at. So if you're working on preps together, hands-on, that the student can actually see what is the problem and what the faculty member sees or what the mentor sees. So there's not too much technology out there, but I'm going to introduce you to a friend of mine. This is C.V. Raman. I don't know if you can see him here. I'll raise him up a little bit. So C.V. is my little friend here, but this is the pair of loops in the camera system that I wear all the time. And so that technology is second to none when it comes to dental education. That very camera I put together in 1999, if you can believe that. So, and you can see how that works by logging on to our YouTube channel. So YouTube at Duggan Oral Design. When you get into there, you'll see lots of videos that I make as I teach. And so as I'm working with students, you're seeing what the student sees when I'm working with them. You'll see as I'm pointing out to them what the problems on their prep is, if they have undermined enamel or undercuts or ski jumps or whatever. And then you can see what I see when I'm showing the student how to improve that prep, how to change it, how to eliminate those serious errors. So the technology is hugely valuable. There should be a source of online materials that goes along with who you choose for your U.S. training and education. So one of the things you should do is look at DugganOralDesign.com. We have a lot of materials that are available there. And of course, as I said, the YouTube channel. And there's a website that I created during the beginning of COVID called web-dds.org. There's a ton of stuff on there. It was written for the public, but it's still something that has so much information about dentistry that I think you'll find that to be very valuable as well. Also, on the main heading line of that website, there's a section that says for dental students, and that will help you understand some of my suggestions about how you might get more out of dental school when you're actually in dental school. So look at that pretty carefully. So look at that pretty carefully. So the online materials are hugely valuable, and as is a letter of recommendation. When you work with somebody to help you learn more about hands-on dentistry in a general context, not just to get through some exam, but to actually learn more dentistry, there's a letter of recommendation that is available at the end of your training process. And that letter is going to be more or less valuable depending upon who is doing it, how long they've been in the field, and how well the dental schools know this particular person. Your mentor in training at this level can provide a great deal of perspective. As I said, learning how to take an exam, which is coming up next, is one thing. You can learn how to do a prep that looks like a prep in a textbook, but you're not necessarily learning dentistry. So learning how to do hands-on dentistry, real-time, patient-based, and learning how to do that and at the same time have a broad-based perspective of how that fits in. What are we really doing to the tooth? We have a plastic tooth and we're cutting a prep in it. Okay, why are we doing that? Because somebody told us to cut a class 2 prep in a tooth? We got to envision that we're doing it because there's something wrong with the tooth. This is dentistry. There is some decay, there's a broken process, there's something broken in the tooth, and we need to be able to figure out how to fix that tooth. Okay, so that perspective from your mentor can be very, very helpful throughout the rest of your career, not just to get you through the next exam. Broad-based learning is hugely valuable. On the Duggan Oral Design website, you'll see a section that I talk about unique to us, and I'm talking about the tripod of learning, 3 things. So the broad base of learning that I like to talk about is, number 1, is we need to understand why we design the preparations the way that we do. So if you're doing a preparation in somebody's mouth for some kind of either direct or indirect restoration, there's a reason why you do it the way you do it. It needs to be patient-based. It needs to be science-based. So what's going on with the patient, even what's happening with the patient's finances. What determines what we do? The design of the preparation has to do with the materials that we're working with. What materials are we working with? Enamel, dentin, and whatever kind of restorative material that we're using. These are all things that need to be taken into account to figure out how we're going to actually design that prep to do the job that needs to be done in the patient's mouth on that tooth or teeth. And then we have to be able to execute that preparation. And this is where a lot of people really fall down. And it takes a lot of time to really absorb the fact that it seems like it should be the most obvious fact in the world, to absorb the fact that for every step of every preparation, there's something you have to see. And you just have to make sure you do. Doesn't that sound simple? There couldn't be anything more simple than that. And yet, most people, when they're doing preparations, they've gotten in bad habits in their previous dental schooling experience. They're looking in a direction, they're seeing what makes them feel comfortable, but they're not actually seeing what they have to see. And if they can't see the critical things, then you're not going to get a good result. Okay, so the design of the preparation, the execution of the preparation, and at the same time, and the execution, again, that's the strategy for doing it. We also, in terms of the execution, it's not just seeing what you need to see, but how do you strategize what steps you're going to do? How do you make sure that you do each step in the progress of the preparation? How do you make sure you do each step well before you do the next step? First of all, figure out a good sequence of steps that will guarantee a good result. If you finish each step completely before you do the next step, and then make sure that you see what you need to with each step, that guarantees that you're going to get a good result. And most people don't get a good result because they're not keeping track of all that. They're not seeing what they need to, or they're not finishing each step well before they do the next step. I see that day in and day out, every day, every student that I work with from all over the world. That's where they start, and we have to get them past that point. And then, of course, the most important thing in reality is once the prep is done, how did you do? Can you evaluate the prep? Can you figure out that it's actually working or not working? Is there anything in that preparation that's going to shorten the lifetime of the restoration? Will that preparation allow a restoration to be done so it can last the expected lifetime? Okay, we have to have an idea what the expected lifetime, but it's way longer than is generally achieved in a dental practice. Okay, so that's something that we really need to keep in mind. Okay, so finding a good mentor to take you through a training process, generate a letter of recommendation that's going to be very powerful for you, but that's going to help you in a whole number of different things. If you find a mentor that accommodates all of those requirements that I was laying out there, then the chance of you getting an invite for an exam for some school is much higher. And the chance of you being accepted is going to be much higher. Obviously, you're going to be doing a better job on your preparations if you've studied well. But the chance of getting invited, I've had students that have had a hard time getting invited to schools, and they take my course, and then they say, and then they communicate with the school that they've taken my course, and then next thing they know, they've been invited to come take an exam. They weren't getting invited before, but once they find out that they've been studying here, then the schools kind of get interested. Okay, well, let's see what you can do. We've got 6 or 8 Duggan students here right now, so let's see what you can do. All right, so anyway, the chance of getting an invitation, the chance of getting accepted, so all that barrier goes down if you've chosen the right mentor to help you prepare for everything that's coming next. Now, choice 3 is an interesting one because it's one that most people don't think that they really have. Most of my students are just thinking, okay, I'll get into any dental school that I can. Well, you have the choice ultimately. And wouldn't it be nice if you could choose between several different schools? Everybody wants you and you have a choice of which school to go to. That would be nice. Then maybe that's more likely to happen if you present yourself in your SOP as somebody that really knows what they want. And, okay, will that school provide me with what I want? Okay, but you have to choose what school you're going to go to, and that can make a big difference. How you work within that school is one thing, but it can make a big difference that the school actually provides you with enough opportunity. Opportunity for what? Okay, so this is one of the things I talk about on the web-dds.org website, in that for dental students section. Opportunity to treat patients. Opportunity to treat complex patients. Opportunity to learn by doing a lot of patient treatment. How much patient treatment can you do at one school realistically? That has a lot to do with the school. But one thing you might do, if you really want to find out about a particular school, contacting the admissions department won't help too much, but you might get in contact with one of the senior students. After you contact the admissions department, ask the senior student, okay, which student in your class did the most units of Crown and Bridge at graduation, and how many did they do? If somebody at the school did 50, that's a good school. If nobody at the school did more than 15, then it may be that it's limited by the amount of clinic access that that school has. Okay, so those are things that you need to do your homework on, and doing your homework by contacting people that are at that school right now and talking specifically about Crown and Bridge, because that's the area where most people are weakest, and that's the time where the minimum graduating requirement of most schools is 5 units of Crown and Bridge. Well, that's not enough. Okay, so you have some choice as far as the school is concerned, so I definitely invite you to do your homework and make a reasonable choice there. But again, if you get the right training in this country before you start doing your applications, and best start early, that's going to help you get over the hurdle of getting invite and getting accepted. It'll also help you get over the hurdle of the DDS orientation preclinical program. Okay, so what is that? When you get accepted into a school with advanced standing, they're going to have you do a preclinical program of some sort. Could be a couple months, could be 3 months, could be 9 months. Could cost you anywhere from $5,000 to $90,000 just to do a preclinical program. So in a lab, doing preps on typodonts, just like we do here day in and day out. So that would actually be a very similar experience to what we do here, except for this experience is probably a little more intense than they have at the dental schools. Once you go through this, your chances of excelling in these orientation programs is very high, very much higher. In fact, I have a lot of times where students get into these programs and they're not worried about how they do in the program. They're helping other students do better because they have a very clear picture. They have that strategy for how to do the preparations. They know how to systematically evaluate a preparation. They know why they're doing a preparation in a certain way because they have that maturity of thought. They put everything together. So, those orientation programs, not many schools say it. I think there's just one school that I've seen that really puts it in writing that if you don't do well in that program, they can rescind your acceptance. So they just tell you, okay, well, you're not learning very well in the orientation program, so, really don't want you working on patients here, so bye. Okay, that's a hard reality to accept. So even if a school doesn't have an entrance exam, when you get to the preclinical orientation course, that gets to be even more important in that piece. That's the only time they've really seen what you can do and how well you learn as you go through. And if you come in there and you're ready to rock because you've had that same kind of experience and you know the basis upon which you can work to give you the best results, hugely valuable. So again, the right kind of training before you even apply to dental school gets you over that hurdle. And then you end up in the dental school actually doing some cases. So again, when I talked about on the web-dds.org website, when I talked about doing cases, how to get more patients. I describe how to get more patients because the school won't give you enough patients. Okay? That's just not going to happen. Schools don't advertise effectively. They don't advertise at all to get patients to come to the school. And if the school has a graduate prosthodontics department, then you can bet that any patient that needs, a number of crowns or a bridge or whatever they need, if there's something that's a little bit more complex, the grad prost department is going to suck them right up out of the patient pool. So you're going to be left with doing a couple patients that need a crown each or something like that, unless you go out and get your own patients. So on that website, on that heading, I describe how to go out and get your own patients. Every school at one time of the year, students go out into the community to look for patients. For when you have a patient-based board exam, they're out looking for patients because there aren't enough ideal cases within the school. So this is something that's been done for many, many decades. That's an accepted thing to do. Well, why not go out and try to find some crown patients? So you can get more patients on clinic and then make the deal with the dean of the school that if you find a patient and bring them in, the grad prost department can't take them away from you. Basically, that's what you don't want to happen. So you get a complicated case that comes in and you can do that case, and that is that's where you're going to be really excelling. And so if you get enough clinical dentistry done in school, then when I graduated school, I had no idea what a GPR or an AGD were. I didn't know what those programs were. Certainly, if somebody told me what they were, I would have absolutely no use for them whatsoever. Because I was ready to practice dentistry when I graduated dental school. And that was typically the way it was when I graduated, over 30 years ago. The big question is, when you graduate, are you confident? How are you going to get confident? Well, you're going to find patients and deal with more complex issues and deal with the choices that we have in terms of the treatments that we do for patients and all the different types of choices that we have. All of these choices, all these treatment planning scenarios can very well be spelled out clearly and enumerated and illustrated in a training course like what we do. So again, our courses are based on clinical dentistry. Okay, here's some situations. This is what we're going to do, but we have different choices and so forth. So that can help to lower the hurdle when you're doing cases when you're doing clinical dentistry in dental school. That can help to lower the hurdle so that when you finish dental school, you are confident. Right now, I would say that probably 5% of all dental graduates from dental schools, whether it's an advanced standing program or a 4-year program, has the confidence based on enough experience to actually go out and practice dentistry. So, I graduated with 100 other people, and those that didn't go into specialties, pretty much everybody just went right into practice. And the dental community was happy to hire us to come in as an associate. These days, it just doesn't happen like that. So a lot's changed in a little more than 30 years. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can take control over your education in dental school. So one of the things that I like to do when I have students coming in to prepare for exams is to help them prepare for the rest of what they have to do, to prepare for the rest of these hurdles coming forward, so that the hurdles are lower and the chances of their graduating with confidence are much, much higher. So that's why I do what I do. And I've had so many times where I've had students tell me they come back and they've been practicing for all these years and say, well, we still do things, we still think about things the same way you taught when we were with you. And that warms my heart, and that's a good thing. So, choose a mentor to help you get ready for all of this, and choose a mentor in dental school. When you're working with complex patients in dental school, find one faculty member that really has a motivation to help people learn, those people that really want to learn as much as possible and that are really eager to do the most complex cases they can. I had a wonderful mentor when I was in dental school. And I can tell you just how to find the best mentor in dental school to help you with your patients. And that is ask other students at the school, okay, who do you not want to go to? And that's the guy you want to go to, okay? Because most students want to avoid the person that's going to be challenging to them, that's going to be putting some stress on them to really do it right, okay? And so I had that kind of mentor when I was in dental school, and when I started teaching in the same school, I became that kind of mentor to my students. And there were a lot that sought me, that came to me as, whenever they could, and there were some that I never saw. They just stayed away. And you can guess who the better dentists are. So anyway, find a good mentor to help you through these next challenges. And by the time you finish dental school, you're not going to need to do a GPR or an AGD. You can just get right into practice, and you can find somebody that's going to hire you as a full-fledged assistant. You'll be able to do whatever cases you need to do, and you're on the career path that's going to take you a long ways. So that's my motivation, and so hopefully you see a little more clearly what can be done to get you through these next 6 steps. And again, just choose carefully how you do each step, and choose somebody that can help you with that. Choose a mentor that will be dedicated to you, that's doing this full time, and that you can communicate with. So again, whoever you're working with, make sure that there's good back and forth communication. My students have lots of questions before courses, after courses. I get emails all the time, and I'm happy to respond. So again, if you look at the DugganOralDesign.com website, you'll see an email address, a couple email addresses on there. So I see all those emails, and any questions that you have, I'm very happy to respond to. Okay, but you might have some questions right now. So I would like to open the floor up to anybody that has a question about any particular issue, and we'll see if I can hear you, and we'll try to work that out.
encourage everyone. I'm taking TOEFL for the whole year. Please, any tips, any recommendations, how to improve studying for TOEFL?
TOEFL? Yeah, well, that's certainly not my field of expertise, but my thought is just spend a lot of time, just spend as much time as you can talking to people. Now, I've never taken that exam, obviously, but there's probably some grammatical things that are looked at. But the basic thing is, why do you have to be fluent in English? Well, you're going to be speaking with your patients. You want to communicate very clearly, and your schools want to be able to communicate with you very accurately when you're a student at the same time. So, the more time you spend just, using the English language and in as many different contexts as you can is helpful. So, that's all I could really say that makes sense to me about what might be helpful. I know I've had certain, some of my students have taken it like 3 or 4 times. They got 92 and 95 and 97 and a 101 and so forth. So, that just has to do with familiarity with the exam, but also over that period of time, they're becoming much more familiar with the language itself. So anyway, probably don't have too much that's really, going to hit that answer exactly, but that's the best I can do on that subject.
Okay, so we have many questions actually, so let's get to the next question.
Okay. My main consideration, what I deal with, is students that don't prepare for their hands-on work in advance of getting an invitation. Okay, so you do the CAPIT application, and if you wait until you get an invitation, and then you start thinking, okay, I think I better get ready for a practical exam, that's the wrong approach. Okay, you need to start working to build up your skills and understanding in all those ways I was describing earlier, so that by the time you get an application, you're ready. All right. So again, as far as the application period and cycle for each of the different schools and so forth, I don't keep track of that. but I definitely keep track of, what it takes to get a person ready for a practical exam. And of course, that's going to reflect the most on, your possibility of being accepted in a dental school.
Okay, very good. Very good. So I'm living in Michigan and I can't go out of here. What are my choices here?
Okay, so you want to prepare for an exam, let's say, prepare for an entrance exam, and you can't leave Michigan. I would say your biggest opportunity, your biggest learning opportunity, is going to be our YouTube channel, YouTube at Duggan Earl Design. And so I post on there a lot. Just this last 2 weeks, I posted a dozen of my lectures that I gave a couple years ago to a class of international dentists. And there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of discussion. So watch those lectures. They cover a number of different things, not everything that we emphasize as much today, but still the class twos, a lot of different crowns and so forth. So watch those lectures. You can do some preps. Type it out, some teeth and so forth, and burrs, and set up something at home. And then look at the videos that I post on the YouTube channel where I'm working with students. And so you'll see preps that are pretty bad. Okay, and you'll hear me discussing it, and you'll see it in detail because you'll see it through CV's loops over there. So, you'll see the prep and you'll see my discussion of it. You'll see where I'm pointing out things that are wrong, and that might be very similar to what you're doing wrong. And then you'll see me picking up a burr and then making a change to start, and then say, okay, now you finished making that change, and that'll lead to a better result. So you can do that. The other thing you can do is actually do like 8 preps on a typodont and send it to me. And I will videotape my detailed critique of it, and then I will send you back the typodont, whatever overnight mail you want to do both directions, and then I'll stream you back the videotape. So you get, very fast feedback on exactly what you're doing wrong. So we can work remotely. And again, most of the materials are on either the Duggan Earl Design website or the YouTube channel. There's tons of materials and resources available there for you. So that'll give you an idea as to what we're trying to do and my, typical critiques of students. And then we can do some stuff through the mail that might be very effective as well.
Okay, we have a question again about TOEFL, so I'm going to jump in and answer this question. The question is,
okay.
Is TOEFL a requirement or a differentiator? Is having minimum score sufficient? Well, you have to remember this is a competitive process, right? So, and it's when we look at an application, we look at it universally. Everything is considered. So, focus on what you can control. TOEFL is something that you can absolutely control, right? The results or you being selected is not something that you can control. So, whatever you can control, make sure that you maximize your chances to be able to be competitive. Your hand skills, your TOEFL score, your resume, right? Enrich your resume with dental experiences. Like Dr. Duggan said, make sure that you're associated with a mentor, with an experience that says that, hey, even though that I'm not yet licensed in the United States, but I'm never really stirred away from my goal to become a dentist. So all of the things that you can control, make sure that you're not being lazy on maximizing your chances to be competitive. And
cool.
Another question we have, can you please elaborate on how to choose the school? Thanks for a wonderful session.
Okay, I like that question because you do have the ability to choose the school. If you believe you do, then you do. And so upon what basis will you choose a school? Location? No. Now, that may not be true for everybody. Sometimes, the husband or the wife has a job and they have to stay near there. There's lots of different things, but location is not primary. The cost is even not primary. The only thing that matters at all is how much clinical experience can you get. That's it. Okay? It's like I was saying before, if you have if you have two schools to choose from, and one of them, a graduating senior, said that, yeah, somebody in their class did 50 units at Crown and Bridge, and the other school, the graduating senior, said, yeah, nobody did more than 12. That might reflect on the school. It certainly reflects on the average student, but it might reflect on the school that did 50. You might ask, oh, how'd that person get so many crowns? And did somebody do 40 and 35 and that kind of thing? And if so, then that school probably gives a lot of opportunity for clinical chair time to work on patients in the clinics. And that's the most valuable part of any school, is that you have the chance to work on patients in the clinics.
Okay, very good. Now we have another question. Do you think doing MPH, Master of Public Health program, a good idea before applying to dental school? Would it increase my chances of getting accepted in a university?
That's something that I hear from some of my students. I mean, a lot of my students do have master's degrees of one sort or another. That's why I put this down. It's a master's degree. But yeah, whether it increases your chances depends on, why you're doing it. As a faculty member, I would look at somebody that has a master's degree on their CV, and if it's pretty clear that they did the master's degree because they wanted to look better to get into my school, I would look a little bit more askance at that. But if it's clear that they did the master's degree because they're just totally driven in that particular subject, they love that subject, they want to bring all of that learning. So if it's an MPH, if you are wanting to get into management, dental management, if you want to get into, for example, work in a large DSO company that manages a lot of different practices, and you want to be hired as the person that's going to make sure everybody's being treated well, systematically throughout all the practices that company manages, then that might be hugely valuable. But whether you can convert that into something that really makes it more positive for you to get into school or not, it's hard to say. Some schools, they do seem to give preference to people that have master's degrees. And I don't know if they're all that selective about it. If you have a master's degree, okay, and then you're up on the next level. But, I don't know which schools those are. And I don't know if, again, if I were in a school, I'd be looking at, okay, does that master's degree reflect a certain amount of passion and dedication on the part of the person or not? That would help me make up my mind there. So it could be a help, but it doesn't have to be.
Another small factor, and I don't want to discourage anybody because I've seen everything. I've seen people get accepted to a program with a 2.0 GPA, and I've seen people that have 4.0 GPA and they don't get accepted.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not always a factor, but let's say that you have the time, the effort, and the financial ability to improve your GPA through a US experience. Preferably, this experience would be like a dental related experience, because there is a dental public health program. But if you can, then at least a university level US experience to improve your GPA as a whole, that might be a good idea if your GPA is significantly struggling. However, I have to say that selection committees are being smarter about this process, and we're not just thinking about the GPA as a factor, but what happens is it's one of the factors, right? But there are some countries that just historically they graduate people with very low GPAs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that those people are not really A+ students. Other countries, everybody gets 4, and they're not really competent.
Yeah, it's sad.
So that's why there's a bench test, there's a personal interview, there's your statement of purpose, your experience, your CV. There are so many factors. So don't get
Yeah.
discouraged. But what I'm saying is that don't waste time. If you have the ability and you're motivated, then yeah. If you think that your GPA is significantly struggling, then do that.
Yeah, and you're right. The personal interview is hugely important. I can sit down with somebody, and I know if I'm talking to somebody that's a 4.0 or a 2.0, in reality, I can tell that they have a sharp ability to recognize the main issues in whatever we're talking about, and so yeah, and that could grow with having a pretty strong educational master's program in the U.S. too. So this makes you have a more of a general perspective, irrespective of whether you have the MS to put on your CV or not.
Another question is, what do the schools look for in a CV or a resume?
Well, we've kind of covered a lot of that already. There's what you've done in the past, and so as far as your schooling and so forth, but we've talked about what you can do in this country in terms of assisting, volunteering, shadowing, so forth, what courses you've taken. So again, if you've taken a course with somebody that's reputable, especially within the restorative dentistry area, because that's where a lot of your dentistry is going to be done when you get to dental school. If you've taken a course, if you study with somebody that has a reputation for not messing around and just making sure that all of his students really know what's going on when they get out there, that's a pretty important part. The letter of recommendation is part of that as well. So anything that is a U.S. experience that shows that you have stepped up to the plate and done everything you could to really see the way dentistry is being done in the United States. You might not know the quality of the work that you're seeing. I have a lot of students that come and they've been assisting at offices around the country, and they take my class and then they start to learn how dentistry should be done, and then they start to realize the guy that they're working for, the person that they're working for in doing the dentistry, just isn't doing that good a job and doesn't seem to really care to do that good a job. So having the perspective of not just doing a lot of assisting, but seeing what the quality of the work is, and seeing the level of caring that's there, and then bringing your own level of caring. And again, an SOP, doesn't get any better than, if it makes it really obvious that you're somebody that's going to care about your patients, forever. So yeah, there are a lot of choices of things you might do in this country. They're all positive, but what you take out of each one, how you grow from each one, is really the most important thing.
Okay, so someone is asking about this recorded session. So we're gonna edit this session and we're gonna post it on our YouTube channel. So if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you will see it in a few days. Another question is, which type of teeth and practice unit do you recommend for practice?
Okay. Basically, there are only two different typodonts that are really being used these days, Accidental and Kilgore. And so that's what we use here. So all of our students use either one of those. Every once in a while you see a Columbia typodont show up, but they're pretty much passé now. They made some bad business decisions way back when. So Accidental and Kilgore. And as far as practicing at home, there's no point in practicing with a handheld typodont. So there was a time where there was an exam in California that all international dentists had to take that was a handheld typodont. And that never really taught them to do dentistry. And then I would take them after they passed that exam, then I'd have to transfer them to a mannequin so they'd be ready to work on patients. And that's where the real learning took place. So don't waste your time taking a course or practicing on a handheld typodont. It's just a waste of time. Anybody that shows you how to do a prep and they're just holding the typewriter in their hand, that means nothing. Okay. So what we do is we do preps in all 4 quadrants. And so you need to have a setup at home. You could just go to the hardware store if you're mechanically oriented, if you have a spouse that's into building things or whatever. Go get an aluminum rod from the hardware store that fits in your mannequin, and then you can get a shower head that has a joint on it, and glue that together and stick it in something, clamp it to something. You can easily get compressors that are pretty quiet, can be used in an apartment, and for like $150 you can get a really nice handpiece control unit. So it's not too expensive to set up these days to be able to work in all 4 quadrants. And by all means, get a nice clean mirror. A lot of my students have trouble adapting to actually using the mirror because they've been encouraged not to, or they might not been encouraged to using the mirror, and then they start to learn, wow, this gets so much easier when I'm comfortable in using the mirror efficiently. So, but without having a mannequin or a typewriter mounted in patient angles and patient positions, and so each of the 4 quadrants is different, you're not going to learn how to do that well.
There's a question: how can a CAPIT applicant increase their chances of getting an invite if they have MS and volunteering DA experience in America, but not a lot in their home country?
Okay, like I was saying earlier, probably the best way is to demonstrate that you've had some educational experience in this country, especially when it's somebody that has, you've got a mentor that's got some credibility. So again, getting an invite is a key thing, and a lot of times it's who you've been studying with, and you communicate to the schools or to CAPIT, put in your CV that you've taken a course with somebody that really knows what they're doing and has a high reputation. You'll probably get an invite, and then when you do, then you got to be ready for doing the work. But yeah, that'll make up for a lot.
Okay. Do you know if there are any helpful resources or websites that list or help students choose the right school for them? I think that we've already answered that question. If you go into our website, and also if you re-watch the recorded session, we've already answered this question. If we didn't get an admission into dental school this year, what else can we do to enhance resume and preceptorship, or any AAGD program, or what to do? Please suggest.
Well, if you can get into a program where you're doing clinical dentistry, that's great. But I would, for the vast majority of my students, I would say, don't even think about getting into an area where you're doing clinical dentistry until you've studied and worked on mannequins at the level that we do here. It's a whole different thing. That'll set you up for being able to do good clinical dentistry. So if you can come here and study with me for a while and get into a GPR or an AEGD, that will be hugely beneficial, and you'll get more out of that program. And then when you get to dental school, you'll be doing great. But again, you've got to find a program that you can get into that'll accept you at this point. But using our course or something like it that's of similar level, that's the only thing I would do before you even think about getting into anything where you're doing clinical dentistry.
A similar question is asking, as a BDS graduate, what scope do I have for GPR AGD programs? And if I may just weigh in here. So, like Dr. Duggan said, GPR AGD programs are strictly clinical programs, so you are expected to be 100% ready. In fact, you are expected to be someone who is reliable, dependable to treat the patient, right? So it doesn't matter if you are BDS or DDS. If you are that person, if you have that kind of clinical experience, if you can prove to the program director that you will be a huge help to treat his patients and maybe also guide some of the dental school level students, then you have the chance of getting into those programs. But if you're a fresh grad and lack clinical experience, if you've been away from dentistry for like the past 15 years, then your chances of getting right into clinical work is very minimal.
Yeah, one of the things I was thinking is, a lot of my students are very, very proficient in certain areas of dentistry. Just a couple of weeks ago, I had a student here that was an oral maxillofacial surgeon. So there's a lot of people out there that have specialties under their belt from other countries and have worked in that area for a long period of time, but their restorative dentistry skills are really, really weak. So a GPR or an AEGD might be very happy to have them come in, but they'd have to bolster their restorative dentistry skills. And but otherwise, their clinical experience might be something that a program would find to be very appealing to have them come in. So there's a great deal of variation. You probably the best thing to do is talk to the people that are running the program and see what they're looking for, how that compares to what you've been doing, and what you can do to prepare yourself a little bit better so that you would be appealing to have them to come into that program. Like Dr. Zendaki was saying, they'd love to have you come in and be able to show other people how to do things. Again, it's a program where you're doing a lot of dentistry, and AEGDs. There's an educational component to that as well, but there are other people that are going to be coming in that they might look to you for some help, and so the confidence level is pretty important there. So one of the things you need to be confident about is, okay, do you really know how to do dentistry, or you just know how to cut plastic teeth? Okay, there is a difference. It's a difference in mindset. That's why we do our courses. So the mindset in our courses is we're doing dentistry, and we're simulating real dentistry on plastic teeth. And that's a different situation. Okay.
So there's a very broad general question asking how can applicants improve their profile?
Yeah, I think that's something that we've spent the last hour talking about in effect. But I would say, the main way is to get some US training. And find the right mentor to provide that training. That's a huge advantage, a huge advance in the profile, and then take that training and do something with it. But that will when things make sense to you, that shows to other people. So the subject of the whole concept in my course is to make sure that people understand things to the point where they just make sense. Again, what doesn't make sense to you, you're going to lose. When you have I worked I talk about this guy a lot because, many years ago, I worked with a dentist. He'd been practicing for 25 years, and he didn't really, a lot of why you do and how you do what you do in dentistry never really quite made sense to him. He could sort of do the dentistry, but after a while, after 25 years, he realized he wasn't happy. And he studied with me, and then he figured out that he wasn't happy because he just didn't know why he was doing things in a certain way. And over the period of time, he had sort of devolved his understanding from dental school to the point where he just wasn't doing good dentistry. It wasn't doing dentistry that would last as long as it should have. So when he got to that point, then he started realizing, okay, when it makes sense to him, then he started doing better dentistry, and he started teaching in dental school. Again, the power of when things make sense is absolutely beautiful to see. When you just memorize stuff like you did for NDBE over here, NDBE, you're just memorizing stuff, and then it's probably going to be lost in fairly short order. Well, that's sad that that's lost. Okay, but you can't afford to lose anything in dentistry. That's what you do all the time, day in and day out for the rest of your life. So you won't lose it if it makes sense. So that's the emphasis that we've always had here. to make sure things absolutely make sense to you, so that you never forget why we're doing something the way that we're doing it.
Okay. So this cycle, I have seen most of the people with masters got accepted. Master is really important for the schools question. If I can weigh in here. So correlation does not necessarily mean causality. Just because this person that got accepted happens to have a master, it doesn't mean that that was the only factor that they considered. But again, people are desperate sometimes. They are just trying to do whatever they can. My point is, don't consume yourself or concern yourself so much about what the schools are or what the Facebook pages are saying, but rather focus on what you can control. And there are areas that you can absolutely excel in: improving your hand skills, connecting yourself to a mentor, and then also working on your soft skills, your interview skills, and connect yourself to a dental experience. It doesn't have to be anything like a master degree. It doesn't have to be that you have to go back to and do programs that are not really, you're not doing it for the right reasons, right? So you're taking an MPH. Are you actually going to work in that field? Ask yourself those questions, because this is your life, your financial investments, making a lot of sacrifice here. So make sure that it counts. The point is, focus on what you can control, not so much about what people are saying or the trends or what Facebook pages are saying. And again, a lot of the things that are being shared on social media are not necessarily true. Some of them are designed by default to discourage you, to make you feel like, okay, there's no hope.
Mm-hmm.
While every year hundreds of people are being accepted. So that's not true. There's always hope, and I think the one fact that you can rely on is that if you have a goal and you're focused on that goal, you will achieve that goal. Just you have to be realistic and flexible when it comes to that time frame that you set yourself to. And that time frame may change. It's not within your control. And that's okay, because I can tell you from an experience that the journey matters, right? The process matters. It's actually what will allow you to go into those programs and finally enjoy it and be really an asset to that program, versus maybe someone who gets accepted by luck or a coincidence, and they're now struggling and crying every day in that program. So being rejected or having to try multiple times is not necessarily a bad thing, as long as you're focused on your goal, as long as you never steer away from your goals.
Yeah, it's a good point. I've seen it from the very beginning when I was working with students preparing for California board exams. It's don't exist anymore, but they're not even competitive exams. Okay, if everybody does a good job, then everybody passes. They're not even competitive exams, but there were people back then that would try to psych other people out, and so they can get advantage over what they perceived as being competition. So even when they're not competitive, sometimes people behave like that. But the exams that are entrance exams to dental schools, those are competitive exams. And so there's probably even more times where people will try to cut down on the competition by, as you say, discouraging them. And so, I would certainly like to help encourage.
Okay. Let's see. Till what point is a candidate considered a fresh graduate?
Well, I guess if you just finished your internship, and you come over here, you're certainly a fresh graduate. But I would say if you have finished your internship and then practiced for, 2 or 3 years, I think you're beyond the fresh graduate stage at that point. I've had a lot of students that have been practicing for, 5 or 10 years. Obviously, but it kind of depends on, if you practiced for 1 year after your internship and it was a very busy practice and you were seeing, 15 patients a day, that's significantly beyond graduation. So, it just all depends on the intensity of the experience after graduation. But anyway, so it's going to vary a little bit, but somewhere in that range, I guess. But I'd look more at what people did instead of how long, they were after they graduated.
There's another question. Doctor, would you be able to guide someone who is already in dental school on pathways of how to be an understudy and work outside of the dental curriculum in projects to probably look into teaching or residency?
Okay. So the teaching part is certainly something that strikes near and dear to my heart. If you're in dental school and you're thinking about teaching, boy, there are a lot of things that you might do. But I would refer you at this point to on the DugganEarlDesign.com website. There's a section on our faculty mentorship program. And so we have designed that program. I've been wanting to teach it for many years. And so it's designed to help people get ready to go into teaching by doing some teaching and teaching with the technology that we use here, and teaching on students that have been previous students of mine that come back, and they do a week course where people come in and teach them, and then I mentor the teachers. And so that's something that I've wanted to do for a long time. And, if you have a goal in mind to share what you've learned over the years with students and, really improve the quality of dental education overall, then I will move heaven and earth to help you out.
How does choosing a particular dental school help in future residency programs? So someone is interested in residency, what school should they choose?
Well, that may or may not depend on the residency you're choosing in relationship to the school. It's going to be, incredibly varied. I can see there may be a school that at the undergraduate level is really strong in one particular discipline. And if you want to go into a residency program in that discipline, and the residency admissions people know that school is really good at preparing people for that discipline, then great. But I should think that would be really, really rare. But let's say you want to go into a grad pros program, and you've done, 10 times more crown and bridge than any other student at the undergraduate level. Whatever school you've been able to do that at, that school has enabled you to get into that grad pros department in a great way. Most of the time people get into grad pros, they just haven't done anywhere near as much crown and bridge. So, if you really want to take it to the next level in a residency program, what can you do to really bolster that particular area of your experience in the undergraduate program? And that may not have much to do with the school you're at, as long as you have the clinical time. But, there may be exceptions. If you have a school that has a super strong endo program or a super strong, implant program, as a student, if you get some cases that are relatively complicated, you can do some implants. Not just observe them, maybe not even just refer your patients to the implant program at the school, but participate in it. I remember I was incredibly lucky when I was a graduate and when I was a dental student in quite a few ways in terms of the clinical dentistry. because I actually ended up, I had a patient that needed 2 implants. Now, this is back in the days where blade implants were done. You have to look that up on Google to see what that's all about. But there was a faculty member in the IDP program at Loma Linda, and I was in the normal 4-year program, but I worked with that particular faculty member who did a lot of blade implants, and I assisted him for one side of the arch, and then he assisted me for the other side of the arch. And then I did bridges on those implants on both sides. Now, that's not a very typical undergraduate case, but that's the kind of thing that can be done if you're out there looking for patients and making the arrangements to find the most complex cases that the school will let you get away with. I had to fight one of my patients. I had to fight like crazy. I had to take classes outside the university just so the university would allow me to do one particular case on a patient, because they just didn't teach at that level. And we didn't have a graduate prosthodontics department at the school at that time, so so it had to be done by an undergraduate. So anyway, whatever cases you find at your school, just maximize how those cases will lead into whatever residency program you're interested in, and that'll always work out.
There's a question about how to highlight on how to write CV. So this is not necessarily the area of expertise that we are going to help you with. I can say that make sure that what is in your CV is reflecting genuine experiences, not just boosting your CV with things that are not necessarily relevant. But making it clear, using a template that is easy to read, make sure that you are emphasizing things such as clinical experiences, research experiences. Make sure that you prioritize and show very clearly the US-based experiences, because that has a lot of weight in your CV.
Yeah, and show things that you've done that illustrate your real goals and your drive to excel.
So someone is saying, thank you so much for the informative session. I attended Dr. Duggan's 5 days restorative dentistry program, and it was extremely insightful. What would you suggest we do to improve our profiles for the next application cycle?
Well, come back and take the second week. That would certainly help. There's a lot of things that as far as restorative dentistry is concerned, that we can always bolster. But it depends on where you want to go, what you want to do. If you know the area of dentistry that if you want to specialize, that's one thing. If you just want to do general dentistry, okay, do as much as you can in general dentistry. Get to know a dentist that's a member of the AGD that has advanced to a very high level by submitting cases and presenting cases at the AGD at national meetings and so forth. Go to the meetings. See what people are doing that are out there in the trenches doing really good dentistry. There aren't that many, but they tend to be at the American Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry, the AGD, and a lot of other Academy of Gold Foil Operators, and Operative Dentistry Academy. There's all kinds of places where you can run into people that are just extraordinary dentists. And if you want to become an extraordinary dentist, then associate with the right people.
Oh, by the way, so I think if you look up Tucker Study Club, you can probably find a local place where you can go shadow. You're not going to be able to work on patients if you're not licensed, but you can absolutely shadow and sit down for their case discussions and get to know people with very high quality restorative skills, and meet the mentors of the program. You can also attend meetings such as the Academy of Operative Dentistry. It's an annual meeting in February in Chicago. So you can keep connecting yourself to dental experiences to improve your resume. You can connect with us too. I think we talked about how if you're local in California, that helps a lot. But even if you have the ability to relocate briefly, we might have a shadowing program available at the Duggan Oral Design too, where we have you maybe shadow and assist in clinical cases. So that's something that you can reach out and ask about.
Yeah, we can certainly sponsor you to volunteering in the community clinic as well that we're associated with. So there are a lot of different possibilities.
Now, the person that asked about Michigan, I think he meant like what are my choices regarding universities and completing my education in Michigan. Well, I mean, this is also your homework to do, right? But I would say if you only have Michigan as your only option for licensure, then University of Michigan is a very big program, and they accept international dentists. You know, the fact that you're local there gives you an advantage to do all the things that Dr. Duggan just mentioned. You know, connect yourself with their alumni, make sure that you attend if they have any kind of tours or any kind of like programs. Get connected with their restorative department, see if there are any opportunities for research assistance or so go beyond what is on the website. Make sure that you develop a real genuine desire to be in University of Michigan based on real facts other than the fact that you are just located there.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that if you dig hard enough, you will find things that in University of Michigan that attracts you. And then when you finally get accepted or maybe get a chance to meet one of their faculties or one of their directors, you will be able to reflect that genuine desire to be in the University of Michigan rather than to answer that, why did you apply there just because I live there?
There's another possibility is, go to the school and find out who's doing research. And in the dental school, and find out, the senior faculty have a research requirement in most schools. And there are some faculty that are hired strictly to do research. And so, talk to people that are doing research in various areas. If something excites you, then volunteer to help. You'll learn a lot, and you'll become, involved with the school in a very real way. You get to know some faculty and so forth, and you can get a letter of recommendation from within the school. That wouldn't be too bad either. So again, just a matter of taking whatever steps you can to get involved and to do it in a really honest and robust way.
Thank you, Dr. Duggan, for the session. Can you name some schools which give maximum clinical experiences?
Okay. Well, that varies from year to year. When I was in school, Loma Linda gave vastly more clinical experience potential than any other school in the country. And when I was involved in the American Student Dental Association, and I got to know a lot of the students from around the country. And I was amazed at, how much I was doing compared to, what they were doing. Schools vary with time, and, what their mandate is and the dean and the patient flow and so forth. But it has to do a lot with, the patient access and, I think Loma Linda was always had a big advantage because the school is a religious-based school. Okay. It's a religious-based school, and so a lot of the people that come as patients are part of the church. And so, that's really important that they go to a school that's, part of their same network and so forth. So there are a number of schools around the country that are like that. But probably the one that I have the most contact with right now that provides a wonderful clinical experience doesn't have an international dentistry program, which is a problem, but it might. I have heard lots of good things from people that know about the UOP program. So, but again, look at it, do your homework, contact them and find out, okay, when a student goes there, what's a typical amount of experience they're going to have clinically in Crown and Bridge before they graduate. And you can learn a lot about the school just from that. And you might not get the answer from the admissions department, like I said before, but contact some students and you'll get a pretty clear picture.
If I've been watching the amazing YouTube videos and practicing, is that enough, or taking the course would help me improve? Oh, sorry. I was muted. Let me repeat the question. If I've been watching the amazing YouTube videos and practicing, is that enough, or taking the course would help me improve?
Okay. Well, there's no question about the course helping you improve. There aren't a whole lot of people that can go beyond a certain point on their own, but it's certainly possible. But when you have somebody that you're working with, hands-on, real-time, one-on-one, right next to each other, it's a lot more real, and it's applied to exactly what you did. The videos apply to what other people have done. So you can see how I teach, you can see what I'm suggesting, you can see how I'm showing how to change things, you can see what I'm seeing when I do it, and you can try to mimic that as best you can as you learn from those videos. But the course will take you, probably 100% more than that ultimately, when you're actually sitting down with me and you do it, and then I change half of it, and then you change the other half of it, and that kind of guidance is you can't replace that with anything that's like a recorded video.
As a faculty member at a dental school, do schools typically take into account updates to an applicant's profile, like TOEFL scores, volunteering experience, or your course after the application has been submitted, or do they only consider the information provided at the time of submission?
That's going to be very much determined by the school. They have, individual. If they're not just accepting everything through CAPA guidelines, the school might very well, and I have heard of schools that will accept a letter from me outside that and so forth. And I have schools where I'm sending letters of recommendation to the student, gives them my name, they send me a request for the letter, I send it to them as an attachment and so forth. So I do that quite a bit. So, there are a lot of schools that will accept, additions and letters of recommendation and so forth that don't necessarily get through the CAPID process.
Any specific inputs for Western University bench tests?
No, not specific. What I would probably tend to do is say that, we kind of keep track of what different schools have typically asked, but that can change moment to moment, year by year, depending upon who's running the show at that school. And of course, every school is different. So we try to teach in a very generalized way, no matter what they're going to ask, we make sure we cover it as far as preparations are concerned. In our 2-week program, we have restorations as well. There are some schools that ask restorations. There's some schools that ask, slightly more sophisticated preparation designs and so forth, which we cover in our 2nd week. But for the most part, my responsibility is to make sure that you're as ready for anything as you can be. People are applying to a lot of different schools. People get invites to a lot of different schools. So preparing only for one particular thing is always a problem. I've had students that, it's been a long time now, but it was not at all unusual for me to have a student come in and say, okay, I have to do this exam and they require an MO on 30, so that's all I want to do. I'm just going to do MOs on 30 and that's all I want to do. Well, then you're not learning dentistry. You're learning how to do an MO on 30. So, practice is going to hire you to do MOs on 30 if those are what's needed. So, again, it's having a much more complete understanding of how to work in the different quadrants, how to do the different preparation designs, how to work in teeth that have different needs and so forth, and how to make some of the choices and decisions that we need to make in order to restore teeth with different kinds of problems. You've got to have more of a general understanding of things, and that's what most schools are looking for. So that's why a lot of schools just aren't going to tell you what's on their exam. Okay, and in one sense, that makes sense.
Okay, I realize that we have a variety of people from different levels in this session. We've had around like 80 persons.
Okay.
So some of them maybe just starting to consider or looking to the U.S. So I'm going to go quickly over this question asking about what is AAGD and GPR. So typically, if you want to practice dentistry in the U.S., you have two major pathways. Not the only pathways, but those are two major pathways. Either you go back to dental school and you spend the third and fourth year, and then you graduate with a degree. It could be DDS or DMD, and then you can practice in any state. And then the other pathway is postgraduate studies, and mainly those are programs that are specialty programs. Some of them are programs related to general dentistry, such as the Advanced Education in General Dentistry. It's a residency program, so you're expected to work on patients and do a little bit more advanced general dentistry than what you would do in dental school. General practice residency is another general dentistry program. It's a residency program, but what makes it a little bit more distinguished than AAGD is the fact that they do more surgery. So it's more hospital-based residencies. Some of them are 1 year, some of them are 2 years. So this is really where you do your own reading and your own homework about like what are the requirements of each state boards to recognize what kind of program and how many years to qualify for a licensure. So we're not going to go into that right now. Now, there's another question. Doctor, would you be able to guide someone who, no, we've done that already. Someone is asking, should we mention our non-dental experiences, such as volunteer experiences in our CV?
Well, if it's a non-dental volunteer situation, well, it could be volunteering to do just about anything, I suspect. But if you have a passion in dentistry for, let's say you really want to do pediatric dentistry, and you volunteer in a non-dental area, but children related, that could be a huge advantage. I've known some really, really great pediatric dentists in my time, and they are amazing people. Their ability to communicate with children is just phenomenal. Most dentists don't have that at all. And so, that's a pretty limited kind of situation, but, that would be, I could see a very positive thing. But, if you're volunteering to do electronic, waste removal or something like that in your town, that clearly doesn't have anything to do with dentistry per se. So if it can be tied together in some sort of a way, that would be reasonable. But other than that, your ability to do community service is, it's rather limited in terms of what that suggests about how you're going to actually do dentistry.
Okay, there's another question. Thanks, Dr. Duggan and Dr. Zandaki, for a great session. If we can't take your 10-day course in one session, can the course be split 5 days, 1 month, and then come back the next month for the other 5 days?
Absolutely. Yeah, in fact, we designed it that way. So the 10-day course, the first week is the same as the 5-day course. And then the second week is what I call, taking it to the next level. But you can do the first week, you can do it in a 5-day, you can do an RD5 5-day course, and then come back and take the second week and anytime you want. You basically qualify to do the second week once you've done the first week, whether it's at the beginning of a 10-day or a 5-day. You can mix and match however you want to do it. Fine with us.
I got accepted to UIC. Is it clinically good? How should I make the best use of the opportunity?
Okay, well, congratulations, first of all. The Windy City, okay? I lived in Illinois for 4 years. It's an interesting place to live. Anyway, yeah, I won't be able to give you any advice about what the school is able to offer, but that's something that now you have the ability to get that advice very directly. As I was indicating before, contact some of the graduating seniors. They have all the answers. Anything you want to know about what to do there and what your opportunities are, you can get from them. But in addition to that, make sure you take advantage of the suggestions I'm making on the web-dds.org website about how to get more patients into the school. Because, in any school where you go, you're going to need to get more patients. Any school that you go to, if you just do the program that they have you do, if you're just doing step by step exactly what they ask you to do, then you're going to graduate just like everybody else graduates, and that is not being confident in your clinical skills. So you're going to have to do more. You're going to, even though they're going to keep you pretty busy, you're going to have to keep busier by working really hard to get more complex and more cases into your chair in the school. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's the whole thing. That determines whether you graduate with confidence or not.
I think we're reaching to the end of the questions. I'm interested in pediatric dentistry because I already did it in my own country. So volunteering in schools count? It's a question mark.
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations on really enjoying pediatric dentistry. It takes a special person, as I was saying before. If you're volunteering in a pediatric clinic in a school, and you are wanting to get into a school for advanced standing, to me, that's wonderful. If you make it clear when you go in that once you graduate, you intend to go into pediatric dentistry, then that's great. You don't necessarily have to have a specialty in pediatric dentistry to be able to do pediatric dentistry. Obviously, every practice has a lot of kids. And, in my practice, pretty much under 5 years old, I referred them out. But, because I always found them to be more challenging. But, people that are really good at it, they can work with much younger kids. And there's just something very special about that. So, anything you can do to connect with pediatric dentistry, if that's your interest in this country, is just all to the good. And people will look at that as being, a strong indication that you're really motivated, to do this, and they will let you do that. Okay, just about wrapping up. One more.
So finally, there's a person that is saying, "Thank you so much. I just jumped to the Zoom meeting. Can you give quick information about the course and how can I get into it?"
Okay, well, that's an easy one. So the website that you see written up here, DugganOralDesign.com. So get onto that website, look under courses, look under restorative dentistry, and you'll see those courses. There's a 5-day course and a 10-day course that are both designed to help people get into dental school. And if you missed the earlier part, not just get into dental school, but to make your experience in dental school easier and more effective, and to help you graduate with more confidence and take the most advantage of your dental school. I like to say I'm not interested in just helping you get into dental school. I'm interested in helping you get out of dental school and get a lot out of dental school.
Okay, that will conclude our questions part of today's session. I've posted multiple times in the chat room our links to YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook, our website, and if you are interested in our courses, you can work with the website to select the course that you'd like and register. If you have further questions, we have our contact information on the website too. Keep connected with us because we will do those sessions periodically. Our goal is to guide as many as we can, regardless of whether you are joining our courses or not. And I will have Dr. Duggan if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, Jess, I appreciate your all being here, and we're all in this together. I don't have the same goals or same goals that you have, except for the fact that my goal is to make sure that you get the most successful experience, when you're in this country until you get to the point where you're actually practicing dentistry. So I share that with you. I've had like 6,000 people that have gone through this process, and they are without a doubt the most courageous people that I've ever met in my life. So I am most enthusiastic about helping you in every way that I can. So again, whether you're a student here or not, you can write to me, ask me questions on our email address, and anytime we need to do another webinar to answer some more questions or to help guide people or steer people in one way or the other, we're going to be happy to do it. So thank you very much for being here, and I'll see you again.